Hey, it's Mike Brennan. We're doing another of our segments on MITech TV. I have Richard Steenan with me from IT Harvest. And what we have Richard on the show for is he's been doing the cybersecurity yearbook for a number of years, and now he's taken all that information on 4,500 or so worldwide cybersecurity companies, along with more than 11,000 products, and put it into an interactive database. As you know, when you publish a book, it's done. You can't change it. But with the beauty of a database is he can constantly update it, right, Richard?
Yeah, exactly. So it's been frustrating because I have updated this book every year for 6 years, the security yearbook. But the frustrating thing is when I have everything together in a big massive PDF and submit it to the publishers, it's out of date the next day, right? Because the data changes so often, and we're tracking that data. We've got it right in front of us on the computer screen. Why not make that available to everybody who's got a job function or a need for that kind of data, right? What kind of who wants to know everything that I know about the security industry? And it's going to be other industry analysts for sure, but private equity, venture capitalists, vendors in the space, consultants in the space, all need this hands-on, real-time data on the entire industry. So that's what they get from the IT Harvest dashboard.
All right,
Yeah.
so where did you get the idea for putting all this together? Was this something that just came to you, or something you saw someplace in the
Yeah,
industry?
yeah, it evolved because when I joined Gartner in 2000, and I remember when the Heydrichs and Struggles headhunter reached out and said, "Hey, Gartner wants to talk to you," and I knew of the name Gartner because at PwC we had a Gartner Data Quest product on our desktops, and it was like a news feed into a Lotus Notes desktop. And I think every consultant at PwC had access to this. And this was during the dot-com boom, of course, so in the 90s. Um, there's so much going on, and I'm a news junkie, a tech news junkie, and I it was rather distracting, right? So I've been doom scrolling longer than any of you because I started with this product in the 90s. And then I get to Gartner and I go, oh, this could be great. They're going to ask me to write a research report. I'll just get the data from DataQuest and I'll have it all in one place. And I'll write up the report with my thoughts. Well, no, DataQuest was a shell of what it had been, and they just didn't have that anymore. So when I left, I said, about a year after I left is when I realized that I was only cut out to be an analyst, an industry analyst, right? Somebody who writes about, talks about something that they're very interested in. And so Gartner wouldn't have me back, or rather, I should say, my position had been filled. So I started IT Harvest, but and the harvest name was from I'm going to harvest all the data on cybersecurity. I left the room there to expand to everything else in the industry. At the time, cybersecurity was just a tiny portion of IT security, of IT anything, right? So back then it was in 2000, what was the hot thing? Oh yeah, SaaS, right? So it was right when Salesforce was getting started, and back then people were still battling between do we use SAP or Oracle? Right? That was a big question of the day. And obviously, things have changed dramatically. Cybersecurity has become a bigger part of everything that people do. There are 4,000 vendors. There are 11,340 products from those vendors that we track. And it's just become a space that needs this kind of tool at this time. And I think after we added a news feed, which we call from a bunch of different sources, but we got constant stream of news on these 4,000 companies. That's when I said, hey, we did it. We recreated DataQuest in my mind.
And I know that you discovered a young man who's been helping you with that. I've had previous conversations with Richard, and that was really the key, right?
Yeah,
Bringing this fellow
yeah,
in.
totally. I brought Maximilian in after talking to him. He was a freshman in college, and he came on board and he was getting a technical degree, and I didn't know exactly how I'd use them, but I said, well, why don't you take my Google spreadsheet that the team in India is populating every month, and turn it into an app. And it took about 2 weeks to have a working prototype. Within 2 months, we had launched, and a month later, we had our first paying customer for the app. So total, after 17 years, it changed us from being just a services company selling my services to an application product company. And it's just been amazing. Maximilian's the CTO and co-founder now of that product company. He's grown as he went to graduate and built. Any time we're doing a demo or anything, he's like, it's all him. Not a single other person has written any of the code or been hands-on to produce the product.
Hmm. So tell us a little bit about how he goes about collecting all that data.
Yeah, so we start with the hardest part, which is identifying the vendors, right? So if you had the list, and this, by the way, this is why this is the last edition of Cybersecurity Yearbook that will have the directory in it. Because if you have the list, you can recreate our product. And the list, there it is in the back. I've got categories, headcounts, and growth rates for every single vendor. If you had that, and in a digital form, um, you could come up with a system with code and AI to get the data we have. Because that's first we find a company by multiple streams coming in, right? People reach out to me on LinkedIn when they're getting launched. Of course, press releases and funding news we get automatically. People exhibiting at conferences. We look all over the world for conferences, especially in Israel, thankfully, where they exhibit at the conferences really early. As soon as they can, they're there, so we can get a heads up that they're there. Our VC customers tell us about companies that we haven't gotten yet. But once we get them, then I categorize them personally. And then we put them in the database. And then after that, everything's automated. We capture headcount, we capture funding, we capture products, descriptions, what the company does, location, year founded, all that stuff automatically populates the database.
All right. And so I know that there's you're just rolling this out. What sort of interest are you getting from the folks out there in the industry right now? I know it's pretty early, but
Not that early, because what's early is each version as it comes along. We're always rolling out something new. So we've got traction. We've had 56 companies reach out to and sign up. And since my conversion rate demo to paying customers 20%, that means 250 companies have reached out. And every time I post to my Substack or LinkedIn, if you follow me on LinkedIn, you'll see all the data all the time, right? That's all I do is I post data from the database. And my greatest desire is to have lots of people doing that, right? It's why am I the only one in the world who's got access to all this data and publishes it? So I encourage all of our end users to be publishing stuff that they can do. Now, as with every book I write, like this one, every product I create, we don't get as much advantage of word of mouth because people treat it like it's their secret sauce to their own success. So they don't share where they get it, which is kind of frustrating and goes against the whole go to market for books and products.
and one last question before we let you go. AI, that came up in the discussions. I mean, AI can replicate some things you're doing, but you're not real worried about it duplicating everything you're doing, right?
Right. Well, we're worried about future AIs, right? So if 2 years from now we have super intelligence, you won't need anything anymore. But we test every model that comes out to see if it can answer some simple questions that takes us a second answer. My favorite one is how many cybersecurity companies are headquartered in Canada? And go ahead and ask Think, K2, Perplexity, any of those, Deep Think, DeepSeek, ask any one of them, and they'll come back with a list. And it'll be about 20 before it peters out, and about half of those won't be based in Canada. It's just wrong across the board. And then if you get really specific, if you want to know how many application security vendors in Canada, then it just goes off the rails. So We're not as close as I actually suspected we would be by now, but another couple versions of OpenAI will get closer.
So how does one take a look at and try to get a demo of your dashboard?
Easiest way is go to, because we've got a funnel, right? If you go to dashboard.it-harvest.com, you can just fill out the form, request a demo. And that goes to Maximilian and I. We get back to you with my Calendly invite and set up a time.